A series of events over the Easter weekend, appearing to be disparate in nature, had a very significant common thread. On Friday, I said it was important for men and women of good conscience to fight evil. But we must first identify it. Exposing evil in our time, that's my focus in today's preamble. In 1862, French poet Charles Baudelaire wrote that, quote, "The finest trick of the devil is to persuade you that he does not exist." The quote was paraphrased in the 1995 film The Usual Suspects as, quote, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist," end quote. More on that in a moment. Some evil is easy to spot. Over the weekend, the Supreme Court inexplicably joined leftist Democrats in working to keep illegal alien criminal terrorists in our country by temporarily blocking President Trump from removing these people. Led by Bushy John Roberts, the Trump-appointed justices joined the leftists on the court. Justices Thomas and Alito vehemently disagreed with the nakedly political move, saying, quote, "The court issued unprecedented and legally questionable relief without giving the lower courts a chance to rule, without hearing from the opposing party, within 8 hours of receiving the application, with dubious factual support for its order, and without providing any explanation for its order," Alito wrote. He went on to say, "I refused to join the court's order because we had no good reason to think that under the circumstances, issuing an order at midnight was necessary or appropriate," end quote. Well, it is necessary and appropriate if the charlatans on the court want to bury their order over the Easter weekend in a ruling in the wee hours of the morning. The Roberts Court took the unusual step of issuing its ruling without waiting for Alito to share his dissent, another indicator of just how desperate these people were to keep criminal illegal alien terrorists in our country and harming you and your family. The delegitimized courts seem to be suggesting that the over 15 million illegal aliens who Joe Biden and his Democrat apparatchiks allowed to break into the country, that each of them get a hearing if they are to be deported. Never mind the fact that none of them saw a judge to break into the country to begin with. This double standard that disadvantages America is why the courts are quickly becoming just as unpopular as the Congress. Other evil hides behind the niceties of high finance and economics. Bond villain Klaus Schwab, chair of the World Economic Forum, which gathers the world's business and political elite in the Swiss mountain village of Davos every year, has resigned as chair of the board of trustees of the group he founded. As you all know, the 87-year-old has built an organization that a lot of critics claim is a push for one world governance by elitists who appear hell-bent on enslaving the world's populations to work enriching those very same elitists. Far from economic prosperity for all, the collectivist nature of this group has earned scorn and derision from those who wish to remain free. But the greatest evil of all is the one that cloaks itself in virtue, and it is the hardest to detect. After a long bout with health problems, the controversial head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, died this morning. The Pope's unusual reign was suspect from the jump. For the first time in centuries, a sitting Pope resigned. Pope Benedict to clear the way for Cardinal Bergoglio's ascension. Equally historic for us in the modern age was the sight of a sitting Pope officiating the death of a former Pope when Benedict passed away just before Christmas of 2022. But remember the quote, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled off was convincing the world he didn't exist"? The order in the Catholic Church that Pope Francis belonged to is called the Jesuits. Inside the Catholic community, this order has a rather dubious reputation for being outright hostile to the 2,000 years of church teaching handed down to us from Jesus Christ himself. Back in May of 2017, the new Superior General of the Jesuits, Father Arturo Sosa, gave an interview to the Spanish newspaper El Mundo. Sosa opined, quote, "We have formed symbolic figures such as the devil to express evil. Social conditioning can also represent this figure, since there are people who act in an evil way because they are in an environment where it is difficult to act to the contrary," end of quote. Not only does this sentiment seem to excuse evil behavior as not being the fault of the perpetrator, as is common in the left-wing mindset, the idea that the devil is somehow a symbolic figure directly contradicts Christendom and the words of Jesus Christ himself. It's hard to fight evil if you're living under the assumption that evil doesn't exist. Pope Francis is gone now, but as a practicing Catholic, I fear his divisive and controversial legacy might take root, destroying the Catholic Church in the process. You see, many of the folks who populate the College of Cardinals, the group that will elect the next pope, they were handpicked by Francis himself, a prospect that doesn't bode well for those among us who wish to follow Christ's teachings to oppose the Dark One wherever he rears his ugly head. You know, folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country, the greatest nation ever. And Americans like you who believe in the truth, the Chris Salcedo Show will never stop fighting for you.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.